All right. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I recognize all of you for being out Saturday morning, 9 a.m. at Station F for the kickoff of the conference. I'm Peter Zemsky, for those who don't know me, INSEAD Strategy Professor, Deputy Dean, Dean of Innovation, and I have the privilege to be your MC for the day. I have, over the last 5 years, as a strategy professor, been particularly interested in this whole area of digital disruption, transformation, and really following these waves of change, right? From e-commerce, sharing economy, virtual reality, 3D printing, mobile, cloud. We just see these waves of change. And I would say for myself, as someone in the space, this sort of last year, as all this surge of interest in AI, it's definitely been an area that I've personally tried to dig in, make sense of, reach out to the kind of experts that you'll see today to figure out what's happening. And certainly, like any digital area, there's a level of hype there and overpromise. But at the same time, you feel like there is a certain meat there, and this is one of those digital technologies you're going to want to watch closely. And so that's what we're going to get to dig into together. When we first started to think about doing something for the community, touched base with Bruno Berthon, who is a senior managing director at Accenture, INSEAD alum, and sort of long-time collaborator and partner of the school, and mentioned this idea of getting people together to dig deeper. Bruno jumped forward and with Accenture agreed to partner. Bruno, why the interest on your side in terms of AI, and what do you like about the program today?
Thank you, Peter, and welcome again to Station F. Sometimes we know that INSEAD is based in Fontainebleau, but sometimes we forget the connection with France. So welcome to the largest incubator in Europe and hosted by the best business school in the world, right? So two reasons to be proud to be here in Paris. Thanks for the lead. And I remember, I think it was a year ago, we do this sort of tech trends approach in Accenture, and I was interviewed by one of our experts, and was asking, what's going to happen in the impact of technology in business. What's your vision of the biggest trend for 2018? And I said, I believe it's going to be artificial intelligence. So not to pretend that I'm a good predicator, as Einstein said, it's very difficult to make predictions, particularly about the future. I don't know if it was Einstein or Woody Allen, but it's the reality is that predictions are mostly wrong. But for us, what we have seen is that artificial intelligence is really starting to happen. It's really moving into businesses. And I'm going to try to give you a sense of why I believe it is a big deal, and why I believe any one of you as an individual and any one of our client companies should have an AI strategy. The first thing is, and I think Catherine is going to give you more of a sense of what AI is, because to be honest, nobody knows. I think I hope the biggest learning for all of you will be to have a bit of a sense of what it is in reality. But I use a definition that AI are systems that perform actions that, if performed by humans, would be considered intelligent. Well, the challenge with that is that, to a large extent, that's what consulting is all about, to perform intelligent actions on behalf of companies, which means that if AI can do that, then it's a big deal for us as consultants. What kind of actions are we talking about? We're talking about learning, we're talking about knowledge, we're talking about language recognition or translation, we're talking about control. So we're talking about activities, again, that are very close to what I do for my clients, what many of you are doing within your own companies. So first of all, that's quite intriguing. This has nothing to do with some kind of a sci-fi, monkeys or robot war. We're talking about really sort of an augmented employee, an augmented intelligence, and how that works, right? And so that was the first intriguing element. I think that the second one is when you start looking at the different forms of AI, as a practitioner, we put in place, for example, chatbots for our clients, and this is a form of AI. But there's many others that are finally relatively sort of simple to recognize and understand, right? It's the text analysis, chat, as I said, recommendation systems. We've always been, looking at ways to develop recommendation systems. That's what software is about. Evidence-based reasoning. Again, as a consultant, we would like to pretend that we're pretty good at evidence-based reasoning, statistical machine learning. Again, that's sort of things that it was not necessarily automated, but we're all sort of working on that, right? So again, if you start looking at all these sort of intelligent activities, there's a lot of things that are really sort of connected to AI. And then what I'm sure Catherine is going to talk about even more is all this concept of deep learning, neuronal systems, where you suddenly start to think about, well, AI is not just doing mathematical sort of tasks or automated tasks, but can actually sort of start developing some form of reasoning. And so that's the idea of you all know about the beginner's sort of mistakes of AI, like not recognizing any sort of Afro-American in a crowd. And there's a lot of things that have been sort of evolving with the next generation. So what happened is that a year ago, as it happens in any garage, or as it happens in Station F all the time, a consultant came up to me and said, Bruno, I think the project we just did for your client, and actually it's a client who's coming here this afternoon, I think we could do it with, we could do most of it with an algorithm. And a year ago I was very naive, maybe as naive as some of you are today, intrigued, and I laughed and I said, well, I don't believe you, but why don't you sort of show me? You can always do the St. Thomas, the benefit of authority. So I said, do you need a little bit of money? How much? He said, well, 50K. That's why he's a consultant. So anyway, he went away and started working, weekends and nights as they do with a few friends. And he said 3 months. He came back like 4 months later, and I was in that room, similar to this one, and he started sort of, presenting the outcome of the project, right? And I was looking for the consultant sort of doing that, and there was no consultant, it was just an algorithm, and he was just managing the algorithm, and the outcome was a digital transformation project with trends and analysis and sort of interviews and recommendation. And I said, who did that? And he said, it's Sheldon. For those of you who watch Big Bang Theory, so Sheldon is the nerd that all of those kids sort of love to watch, and so Sheldon is now a member of our consulting team. So he's outside. I'm afraid it's a he, but it's because of Sheldon. It's not our fault. It's just the movie. And if you go upstairs, you can meet Sheldon and look at what Sheldon does, right? And so now in our team, then we have Sheldon doing trends analysis, scanning ventures, doing venture evaluations, identifying experts, etc. Right? So that's really a way to say that AI is real. It's now. As one said, the future is now. It's just not evenly distributed, and that's what we're going to try to share with you today. And that's where we have, I think, a great agenda, and I'm sure that Peter can comment on that.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just highlight a couple things in what you said, which is, AI, great potential, but I do think people, because it comes close to some of the things we associate with our identity as humans, people sometimes get threatened by it. They don't necessarily see the opportunity. And I think one of the really key things I'd like people to get out of today is a sense of agency, right? So that just like in Bruno's example, there are things you can pick up and do, both at the individual level, but I think even more importantly, at a social level, right? Like all of these technologies, how we use them is going to depend on all sorts of decisions that individuals are making. And it's really important that we get that sense of agency at both levels. So as Bruno says, let's take a look at what we got in store with you. I won't, we're not going to go through line by line, but big sweep here is in the morning, we'll really look at the fundamentals. What is AI about? What can it do? Demystifying AI. And then, the key thing at a business school, of course, is not the technology, but linking the technology to what it can do for business. And also, as I said, with AI, it's important that we keep going and also think about the broader social context. So we'll try and put those kind of things on the table in the morning. At lunch, we will feed you food. And as Bruno said, we have a whole bunch of demos outside that you can play around with. Hope you do. Get your see what things look like. And then we come back in the afternoon. And that's really where we'll look at sector by sector, whether you're interested in startups or big tech, traditional companies, how is AI having impacts by sector? We'll sort of double click on each of those. So there you go. That's the plan. We will try and, it's pretty action-packed, so you'll see me pushing people on and off stage. We'll open up for questions, hopefully pretty frequently. Questions need to be short and to the point, and so be prepared on that. Quickly, housekeeping. So usual stuff, do broadcast on social media. You can see a couple hashtags there. We won't take a lot of time to give details on speaker bios. All of that stuff is on the app, so do that, so you can see what's coming and see who you're hearing from. That looks good. So I think, Bruno, we're going to already move on to our first speaker. So this is great, coming in from Toronto, Canada, a really well-known, not only speaker, but someone who's like deep in the middle of this, multiple startups, works for Fast Forward VC, so really has a great perspective on the technologies. A good INSEAD person. She speaks 7 languages. She also has a philosophy from Stanford, so probably can go deep. Please join me in giving a big INSEAD welcome to Catherine Hume. Catherine.